Just 2 more games to go here for day 1 for the Quake World Championship. Joining me again here on the desk, we've got Flea and Lethal. Gentlemen, welcome back. We are about ready to go into our next upper bracket game, which is going to be Av3k versus psygib. And before we talk about these players, look at picks and bans, got a chance to interview Av3k, and we're going to hear what he had to say about regular season, his favorite champs, and of course, hear the finals.
My game tag is Av3k. I started playing Quake when I was about 14 years old, so it's like over 15 years. I don't have favorite champions. I'm just like trying to play the game professionally and choose whatever I have to. Journey. I think it was decent. Of course, I could win a bit more games, but in general, I'm quite happy with that. I personally like to play on LAN better, because I usually get more motivation, the conditions are better, there is more pressure, and I like to play under the pressure, so I prefer playing on LAN. I think it will be super good, because the competition is quite tight right now, like in the top 5, so it's really hard to take it and guess like who's gonna win. But it will feel unbelievably good, because like the last major event I won was many years ago. I think since the bracket is like double elimination, you kind of like shouldn't give too much thoughts on that, because like you're probably gonna have to play a bunch of players to get to the finals. You might drop to the lower bracket and meet other people. So I think that the place in the beginning of the bracket isn't that important, actually, if you want to go far in the tournament. So I try to not focus on that. I think Rafa is in great shape, Kilson as well, Wenger, Razy as well. Razy is super big threat always on LAN. I forget about him, but yeah, he's always up there. Some players are better on LAN than online, some are worse. So I'm curious myself to see and watch it from a side how it's gonna go, and it's super interesting for me. Of course, a big shout out to Team Endpoint for supporting me already we are going together for the year already, so it's quite a long journey. They've been supporting me from the beginning of QPL project, so shout out to them and their sponsors, to Tex, and for their letting us use their facility for a bootcamp, and for the other help, like mental help, financial help, and everything they do for me.
Well, there you heard from Av3k. I'm a little upset because I want to look all smart and everything, because, I mean, he said it himself. Av3k is a LAN player, and
right.
He has always been very vocal about that. That's where there's the highest amount of pressure. That's where you are truly put up against the wall and forced to fight your way out, and that is 100% the type of player that Av3k has been in his entire 15-year career that he mentioned about right there. So I think of, you know, of what we've experienced over the last year. Have we seen some amazing games from Av3k? Absolutely. But is this the environment that he wants to thrive in? You better believe it.
I also just love how sober he is about this in the interview, right? First of all, he says, favorite champions? I don't really have favorite champions. I pick what I need to pick to win
yep.
and to get the best results. And then after that, I loved the very sober take saying, well, it's double elimination. You're going to have to play really good players regardless. So seed, I mean, it is what it is, right? The seeding, you're going to have to go up against the best in the world no matter what. So to him, it really doesn't matter that much. And I love that attitude.
Yeah, and want to add to that as well, I looked at an interview, I was watching an interview actually, funny enough, with Av3k, and he was basically describing with the top players how they transitioned to LAN, because it's been quite a while, it's been 2 or 3 years since a lot of his players have been back in an offline environment, and he was saying that there's very minuscule things or changes that some of his players make, which makes a huge difference, and that's when he notices all these changes, which gives him a bit more confidence. Like I said, he's also a LAN player, but he's had so much experience across the board, and this is like a time for him to try and shine. We've seen a lot of people, a lot of favoritism with the top 4 with Wenger, Razy, Kilson, and Raf. I've not heard Av3k's name mentioned much, but he's definitely well in there as well.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And let's talk a little bit about his opponent coming up here, psygib. You know, looking good earlier on in today. Won his matchup to put him here in his game versus Av3k. And you know, what do you have to say about psygib?
I mean, psygib has struggled throughout the season, right? He was the first to admit that as well during his interview, said that he hasn't been able to perform the way that he wants to. But over the past few weeks, he has been able to get into much more of a practice mode, really focused, dedicating himself to LAN. So I'm curious to see what he can do now. Earlier today, he already beat Sip. So yeah, let's see how this one goes.
Yeah, I want to add to that as well is the fact that, yeah, sure, he's had a rough season. There's been a lot of major faults in his gameplay. Is 2 to 4 weeks enough to kind of rectify all those mistakes he's made leading up to this moment? Not sure, but you got to remember he is a very good, methodical and calculated player as well. Not as fast as some of his opponents, but he likes to play it like quite slow and steady and just quite reactive in terms of what he wants to do. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a struggle because you saw it in the Pro League as well. He's riding that struggle bus where it was either straight up 3-0s or it's been quite a close series off and on. But you know, maybe if he puts on his sunglasses, he'll reach his true potential. I don't know. We'll have to see.
I don't know either. For me, one of the things that actually maybe we go to the picks and bans and we could talk a little bit about it. Let's take a look at those before we get started. We'll get there eventually. There we go. So we got Blood Covenant picked by Av3k, Corrupted Keep from psygib, and then Veil if we go to a final map. Taking a look at the champions. Flea, you want to break this down for us?
Sure. Starting it off, Blood Covenant, we get Nyx versus Anarchy, two really fast light champions, which is something we've seen a lot of on Blood Covenant today, right? We've seen a lot of Slash, we've seen Athena, we've seen Anarchy played as well, so this is nothing out of the ordinary. Then map 2, Corrupted Keep. We're gonna see Strock, played by Av3k, really popular because there's no railgun, so you don't have an immediate counter to the Peeker, going up against Ranger, also a very versatile pick on this map. And then finally, it may come down to the decider, Veil of Nav, where we are going to see Ison, very powerful with that turret, able to lock down areas of this map with ease, up against the Death Knight. Lethal, that's interesting.
It certainly is indeed. Av3k's been performing his best on Ruins and Blood Covenant, but standing for psygib is basically pick your poison at that stage. So Blood Covenant will be the first map, and he didn't really have too much of a choice. Obviously, just clearly prefers it in comparison. Going to Corrupted Keep, that's actually a bit interesting in itself, because just having a look at my notes, it's been Insomnia and Awoken, which he's been leaning towards from a statistical standpoint, but it's not really much. He didn't really win many maps, so it's quite hard to grasp exactly what he's going to be looking towards going to his map pool. But Corrupted Keep is going to be interesting in itself, and the final one being on Veil with the eyes, and once again, scale band, of course, against that Death Knight. That should be an interesting one if we do make it that far.
Yeah, if we do. So leaning a bit towards predictions, you know, one of the things that I was going to say is, like, for me, you know, Av3k, definitely a favorite, but there's kind of a question mark, which is, you know, Av3k performed well during the season, although he had some bumps in the road, but the preparation leading up to this point, right? Like, you can be a LAN champion, a LAN warrior, and that's great, right? That attitude, first and foremost, what you need, but the preparation, the practice behind it is just as important. You mentioned that he talked a little bit about the little differences. Well, you've got to change your game. You've got to make those adjustments, but then you've also got to be able to adjust to all of the different things that your player, you know, your opponent are adjusting to as well. So I do tend to lean a bit more in favor of Av3k, and I think right where I sit on that fence has a lot to do with how much he's prepared leading up to this, which I'm not 100% sure.
I think the unknown is just that we haven't seen Av3k play yet, right?
Yeah,
We've been able to watch
too,
him rehearse a bit, get some preparation matches in behind the scenes, but we've seen what psygib can bring to the table. We've had him watch, or we've gotten to watch him play Sib earlier today, but Av3k is still a bit of an unknown, at least when it comes to playing on the main stage. So indeed, Wade, you raise a good point, but still, I just question how much psygib has been able to improve over these past few weeks, which is what Lethal alluded to earlier himself. So I am going to have to say 2-0 for Av3k.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is like the safe bet there. If you're waiting for us to comment before you put in your predictions there into chat, you know, I want the boxer to come out, right? We talk about Av3k's analogy of Quake is like boxing. You have to do the dance. You have to attack when it's right. You have to be defensive when you need to be defensive. And there's no doubt one of the exciting aspects of returning here to LAN is watching Av3k in that natural habitat.
Yeah, I kind of feel like him and Rafa, there's a category between him where I kind of feel like they transfer their skills onto LAN the best than any other player. There's some players that are at the higher echelon once more, but it can be a little bit hit and miss when the pressure is on because they want it so badly, they've been grinding so much. But they've hit a stage where they're still looking pretty damn good, but this should be an incredible series nonetheless.
All right, well, I'm going to take this one with Fleas, so we'll see you back here in a little bit. Lethal, thank you for joining us, and we are officially live watching through the eyes of Av3k here on a classic Quake map, Blood Covenant. Of course, Av3k on the Nyx and psygib on the Anarchy. And I would kind of, Flea, expect a faster-paced game, you know, given the champions we've got, given the way that these two players like to play. It's what I expect, although I have been surprised more times than not today.
I mean, Av3k has coined the term Av3k aggression, right? Or rather, it's been coined around his playstyle back in the day. And on the other hand, you've got psygib, and psygib is best known for being a brawler to the core. Up close and personal, rocket, shotgun, LG, that's what he likes the most. So indeed, I'm also expecting a much faster plays game.
Now completely just ignoring that Mega and going in for the kill, missing that rail as the psygib comes up the stairs, but is being very adamant about going for it. He's going to jump back across. We'll finally grab that Mega, and we're going to start things off unusually with an 8-second delay between the two, which could set up for another interesting cycle here as the game continues.
Interestingly enough, Av3k doesn't have LG, and psygib doesn't have rockets yet, so both players are missing a key part of their kit.
Yeah.
And I think that they're probably going to want to slow things down a little bit, at least until they're able to secure and complete the unholy trinity.
And now in a situation, Av3k knows his opponent has gone over to that Mega, hits a rail on the way up, will be able, actually is going to maybe go down to the LG. No, he decides to go ahead and chase. He drops down, hits the rail, and then goes into Ghost Walk in order to retreat back, grab that heavy, and now he'll be able to complete the trifecta there and grab himself an LG.
That's the Av3k aggression, baby. Completely leaving the heavy, just trying to stop his opponent dead in his tracks around the LG, hoping to get a frag taken by surprise. Almost what happens, but still, psygib managing to stay alive despite a significant stack deficit.
I do think you have a level of confidence to do something like that, right? Like you know where your opponent is, or you're confident in your own map awareness, where they might be. Av3k's going to drop back down, pick up that heavy yet again. Rocket jump to get position. Another nice rail, and so far Av3k has been doing a great job shooting. Actually only a 46% rail right now, but hitting the ones that need to count.
That jump at Mega just hasn't been psygib's friend. It feels like every single time he's gone up there, he has been punished by a rail. And oh my goodness, heavy machine gun, 165 points of damage just like that. And Av3k secures the first frag of the series.
I mean, catching his opponent in a position, so much of this tournament's been dictated by, you know, having the right weapon at the right time. We've talked about it. It absolutely is a skill. You have to be thoughtful about what you're carrying around, where your opponent is, how you're going to be attacking them, because having the wrong weapon out means you might eat a lot of damage you didn't expect to eat. Now, psygib finally answering back with a little bit of damage on his own, popping Av3k back up, but he continues to roam with a little bit better stack. We're 3 minutes in this game, maybe not as fast-paced as I would have expected it to be, Flea.
Yeah, indeed. Both players were aggressive, but of course they're so mobile that they can each get out of sticky situations. And psygib knows that if he overextends, that Ghost Walk is just going to come out. Av3k is just going to disappear, get himself stacked back up, and can easily turn the tables on him. And on the other hand, Anarchy is just so slippery, so fast, that it's difficult for Av3k to really get a good grasp on him. So I think that's why the scoreline is as low as it's been.
Ooh, another delay here is going to make his way over to the heavy. Does catch psygib with that LG. Will pick up that heavy. Very, very low. Rocket can't finish the job. Av3k still in the lead here, 1-0, as once again we have pretty even stacks. Some rockets from up above. And what will psygib do? Is he going to go ahead and attack? Nope. Just surfing down below, and will decide to back off and retreat.
I like the weapon choices I've seen on Av3k's end. Like you mentioned earlier, Reed, he has been using a lot of different weapons, right? Tribals coming out a lot. We've seen the nail gun, the heavy machine gun. But that rocket into rail. psygib with around 20 points of health left manages to secure himself a frag and tie it all back up.
It was a good surprise there by Av3k, but psygib responding to the situation in a very, very good way. Didn't panic, didn't try to say just run away down the stairs. Instead, got the pop on the rocket, followed up with the rail. Nicely executed. Now, Av3k knows, hey, my opponent's low. I'm going to put on a little bit of pressure right now, but psygib pulling out an impressive, and this will be the first time that he's starting to now take a little bit of control here of the major items. In fact, he's going to really speed things up a little bit, coming around that curve and then landing another frag with the shotgun.
Really clever push by psygib right there, showing that he's got more than just brawn, he's got the brains as well. He knew that Av3k was lacking the railgun, Wheat, and that is how he was able to cut his opponent off, even pushing himself forward faster by getting a rocket jump going, and that's what allowed him to stop Av3k dead in his tracks and get another frag, because the Ghost Walk hadn't yet recovered.
Yeah, he does manage to finally get a rail, land one right there. psygib now on the lower level, gonna be hurting a little bit on his stack. There we have the eject come out. Will grab a light as well. We're halfway through this game with what is a pretty low-scoring game, but if we go back to, you know, Av3k's boxing analogy, that's what we're seeing here on Blood Covenant. We're seeing a little boxing match. Both players testing each other out, seeing where the defenses are, attacking when appropriate. You know, I wouldn't be surprised to see either one of these guys open up if the opportunity presents itself, just like psygib did to get that first frag over near the heavy.
Very little LG damage by either one of these players. It's really been railgun that has been their primary go-to weapon, and Av3k, there we go, 2-2. Gets himself Mega as well, and this is a nice time to get that frag, Weed, because he can easily move from Mega onto Heavy, especially landing after landing that rail, I have to say. psygib can't really go anywhere. This should be another frag just before the Heavy spawns as well. This is good for the Polish Prince.
It is up by 1 now, and once again, weapon selection, big deal right there. Could have gone for the rail, could have gone for the rocket, knew that he just needed some chip damage. The machine gun finishes off, gets hit again. psygib taking a huge amount of damage right there. Av3k's not going to chase. He knows his opponent then is going to be on the hunt to just try to restack. He's going to find him. Oh, I think he knew exactly where he was, but catching him around. Great rocket. However, losing his entire armor stack. Will retreat back, grab himself that heavy, and still a 1-point game with 3 minutes left to go.
That hoverboard is loud.
It is.
That's how he was able to pinpoint his opponent's location perfectly just by relying on the sound cues alone. Now both players weak. A rail could end it. Oh, lovely!
Wow.
Av3k! So confident going for the rail instead of the item. That's what we love to see, Wheat.
I mean, you really, like, that's a hard read to make if you're psygib, right? Like, of course my opponent's going to go for the item. No, that's not. That was one of those opportunities where it's like, my opponent's low, I can land a rail, that will get me another frag, getting one ahead. That's going to put me in a great spot here in the final moments. That is exactly the execution of Av3k's boxing analogy right here in Blood Covenant. It was nicely executed, and it's not the first time he's done that. So now he's got, you know, his opponent guessing, and psygib kind of going, okay, is he going to go for it? Is he going to come after me? It puts psygib in a cautionary state constantly. Wow.
Nice. One more bullet will do it. psygib expertly maneuvering around the map with that air control.
I mean, you're on land, right? You might I used the machine gun. It
absolutely
devastated.
Oh, if he can get this frag, then psygib is in such a difficult spot. Because keep in mind, he's chasing down a Nyx. Yes, he is more mobile playing Anarchy, but he first has to get through that Ghost Walk, Weed. He has to chew that ability out, and only then can he go for the kill. And that will add so much time to the clock, and time is the one thing that psygib doesn't have.
And there the aggression comes out as he catches his opponent coming out from the teleporter, does land the rail on the way out. psygib hurting here a little bit, and Av3k is not going to fall for those tricks. He converts and goes back over to the columns of DM6. Rockets being rained down in the corner, gets hit with 1, 2, 3, and the fall away rail for frag number 6. You know, psygib still had some real good frags, made some good decisions, but I think Av3k came out on top simply due to making decisions in which he deprioritized major items in order to go for shots that he was confident he was going to be able to hit and result in a frag.
Couldn't agree more. Av3k, very, very well moderated aggression, but nevertheless consistently applying pressure, showing psygib all the corners of the room, and now one map up. That's already match point for Av3k.
It is, and you know how quickly things can turn, right? We had a slower paced game. It then slowly built up like a boiling pot of water that eventually just kind of overflowed. And there the final score is going to be 7-2 to 2. And again, you know, one of those games, Av3k had his explosive moments, ended that one with a 54% rail. But, you know, was that game closer than a 7-2? At least in the first half, it absolutely was. But again, blood in the water. Av3k's a shark. He saw vulnerability. He went for it, and you know, caught his opponent out on a few times. I don't know that I've seen today that much type of play that Av3k kind of demonstrated, in which, yeah, I take that back. We did see a few moments where it's like, I'm going to let my opponent get some items. But in this case, I think he knew that his opponent wasn't going to get the items. It was more just him saying, I'm not going to grab this until after I kill my opponent. It worked out quite good for him.
Oh, absolutely. This is indeed a playstyle that we really haven't seen all that much of yet. This was so deliberate, not just like, you know, I'm gonna now do something else because I want to get ready for this next item, or hey, this just so happens to, you know, fall into my lap. No, this was a game plan. Av3k went into it knowing that that's exactly how he wanted to play it, and it worked out oh so nicely. And again, I just want to shout out his weapon usage. So balanced, right? Not always going for the railgun, but choosing for heavy machine gun. Sometimes heavy machine gun over the LG, then tri-bolt over rockets, plasma over anything else, right? Av3k just made use of every single piece in his kit, and it is beautiful to see.
Yeah, even that 40%, you know, heavy machine gun. Yeah, that is something we haven't talked about much today. We've seen it, but there were times where Av3k clearly was like, well, my opponent's got a stack, but I'm in a good position to hit these shots where they are not going to be answered back. I would expect that we'll, you know, Shane, Rafa actually said, one of the cool things about these tournaments is watching the meta unfold during the tournament, because every tournament definitely has a meta. Keep in mind that we've been away from LAN for a while, right? Like, people are relearning now, like, oh, yeah, that works really well on LAN. And I think that was a great example of that right there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Av3k, definitely one of the most veteran players in the scene, but now all eyes will be on the next map, which is going to be Corrupted Keep, so no railgun at play, and that was such an important weapon for both of these players, right? We saw very little LG being used, but a whole lot of rail. And it will be Strog being played by Av3k versus Ranger by psygib.
So, I mean, I guess the big question is, do you think that we'll see more heavy machine gun play out of there? Because that's actually something that we do see a lot on Corrupted Keep already, but now on LAN, you know.
I mean, based on what we just saw out of Av3k, I'm going to say yes. We are going to see a lot more heavy machine gun, and it is going to sting for whoever's on the receiving end.
Yeah. Now, I think, interestingly enough, you know, I love the Strog Ranger matchup. Obviously, Ranger with a little bit of mobility can be aggressive with that, or can reposition with that, or Strog can do some similar things, right? Getting your opponent trapped in certain areas, or maybe just trying to get information. So I think this is like a pretty balanced champion matchup, but will ultimately come down to, you know, weapon selection.
True. I think that it'll be a very important part of map 2. I'm curious also about how the Strog is going to be used by Av3k, right? There's a number of ways in which you can bring out that peeker on the map that is Corrupted Keep. There's no railgun to counter, so a lot of players just, you know, they send it out as a kamikaze, but what you also often see is someone just bringing up the peeker, holding it up against the ceiling, and then just raining down the bullets, because it's so difficult to take it down without a railgun at that kind of distance. So, curious to see how Av3k will approach this.
Yeah, and it should be said, obviously, you know, Rockets LG, key components here as well. We're looking through psygib's eyes on the start. psygib is going to grab that heavy. Immediately over, sees Av3k at the top of the statue. How is he going to attack that one? Rocket in hand, shotgun, nail gun as well. Just kind of playing this one a little bit slower to see if he might be able to see. He's looking around. He's not really sure where Av3k is, and there he sees him slide around the side. He fires a rocket. Unfortunately, it misses. Av3k lands a little bit of LG damage. Not enough to make a massive dent or feel like I've opened up an opportunity to go. psygib now going to hang out here the heavy. Delays a couple seconds. Maybe waiting to see if Av3k was going to come in, but a slow start here on Corrupted Keep.
This is the weapon denial phase of the match, Wheat. Because if you look closely, psygib, he has got the rockets, but he doesn't have heavy machine gun. He doesn't have the lightning gun. Those are all tools that Av3k does have, and Av3k wants to deny access there too when it comes to psygib. He wants to be able to dominate these mid-range as well as these long-distance fights, and he's doing a really good job at that so far.
Yep, there we saw that long-range machine gun damage coming out as his opponent went for that light. psygib not giving up, though. Better armor stack. Av3k with the better health stack. And Av3k has kind of prioritized the LG room and the Mega a bit. They're going to have an orb come out, more for position. LG's exchanged 1 minute 30 seconds in. Some nice rockets coming here by psygib. There we're going to finally have Peeker come out, but not going to do much.
I really like the use of the orb by psygib right there. Just he knows that that's such a bad position to be stuck in at the teleporter exit with LG, and he knew that if Av3k comes out, blocks him with the heavy machine gun at that distance while he's stuck behind the statue, he's in such a terrible position. So to preempt that, he just throws the orb out there, gets himself out of that sticky spot, and is able to resume the fight like nothing happened. So really good use by psygib of the ability.
And you should absolutely be thinking about every single way in which you can use the utility of the orb. Like, it's not just to get in your face, crunch them, and kill them. It's absolutely an escape, a way to avoid being fragged, because we're still 0-0 right here, and I do think that you're going to be most successful with Ranger going that way. Now, psygib is going to take a lot of damage. Peeker going to try to clean him up, but it doesn't happen. Down to 23 points of health, though, in the back hallways. His opponent has a pretty good idea where he is, but psygib, very smart, listening to his sound cues, hears his opponent, and decides to go the other way. He will stay alive as a result.
That's such an awkward position to fight the Peeker at for psygib, right? Because
Yeah.
it's too far away to kill it with one shotgun blast. But 2 shotgun blasts, that takes a while, so he just sticks with the LG, doesn't want to switch, but using the LG to bring it down also takes a little while. So Av3k got quite a bit of unreturned damage right there and should be able to clean up the frag. Indeed, he will. Just before Mega spawns as well, Av3k now full control of both of the items. This is a scary moment for psygib, because this is a very snowball-heavy map, as we say time and time again. And here we go, 2 frags immediately following the first.
I really want to point out, you were talking about the usage of Peeker. How is it going to be utilized? Av3k trying to clean up one more frag, he does. But in that particular instance, we saw Av3k kind of fly through that doorway. And there was that one opportunity, I could do some damage to you. But then obviously, as Strog kind of then goes, you know, into, I don't know, stasis mode as Peeker goes out and does his damage, there wasn't any room for psygib to be able to react to that. So he kind of had to deal with Peeker, and Peeker was in a great spot to do that additional damage. Av3k now finds himself 3-0 as we hit the 4-minute mark, and is trying to do everything he can to kind of stay alive, but Av3k just is ultimately, you know, he's managing control.
Slight item advantage for Av3k, but overall nothing too obscene. But the damage, Wheat, significantly favoring Av3k right now by over 500 points. And 500 points may not be a lot, but when there's only 3 frags that have been exchanged, that's percentage-wise, that's huge.
He sees the orb fly out. It was just a decoy, though, Flea. And that's going to be a cue to say, okay, then I know exactly where you are. So it kind of turns against him just a little bit, and he finds another frag as he catches him with the LG on the way down. And here you talk about a snowball-heavy map, and there it is, answering the call, knowing exactly where to go, and does manage to pick up another frag off the spawn. Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was a good rocket. That could help stop the bleeding, at least for now. But psygib, he's lacking weapons. No LG, no heavy machine gun. Will get a good bit of armor to top himself up right there. But it will be Av3k who secures the heavy. Now the stacks are pretty much identical. psygib actually has an opportunity right here, but the Peeker, oh, once again, destruction!
I mean, again, deploying in a place and a position in which there's no way you're, like, your opponent has to deal with Peeker. Your opponent cannot go after you. Remarkably done right there. Awesome, perfect execution, 6-0.
Yeah, we were wondering about it before the match started, but this has just been masterful usage of that ability by Av3k. And psygib really struggling to get any sort of a foothold on the map now. That rocket will definitely help. Oh, but the drop! I don't know about that one. Not sure if it was intentional, if he knew that Av3k was there, but that's throwing your life away.
Yeah, I wonder if the orb wasn't a Hail Mary in that point. It was pretty close to that point, but it's one of the situations where if you miss, you're giving up a frag.
Absolutely.
And we're now 8-0. This Av3k has kind of opened up. I feel like his let his gear shift up to 4th gear. He's not quite going crazy aggression, but he's keeping the pressure at an all-time high here. Still got 4 minutes left to go, but psygib has to find a frag in the next 40 seconds, I think, if he wants to consider that climb.
True. Another thing to consider, Wheat, is of course the innate mobility of these champions, right? If you have to chase down a Strog while you're Ranger, the only way you're going to be able to catch up with him is by using the orb. Other than that, Av3k can run circles around you, and that is just going to become incredibly difficult. We've seen matches like this in the Pro League before, someone trying to chase down a Strog while they're Galena or Ranger or BJ, and very often it just straight up doesn't work.
All right, well, psygib looking for an opening here. Rockets do hit, a little bit of health pick back up by Av3k. He's at 41 points of health, is going to pick up that light as well. And psygib going through that doorway, didn't expect for Av3k to be there. He did look like he was going to be able to mount up that first frag that he needed, but unfortunately Av3k, his survivability too good so far. LG, and we will have a trade. So on the board, but is it enough? Well, 2.5 minutes to go. Not looking super good for psygib.
A trade at this point only favors Av3k.
Yeah.
He's the one who can plus back. He's the one who can shut things down, go full on the defense. Whereas psygib, all the pressure falls on him right now. And I really, I'm trying to stay optimistic here, but 8 frags in 2 minutes. Yes, it is corrupted key, but he doesn't need a snowball Wheat. He needs an avalanche at this point.
Look, I'm all about optimism, Flea, but at some point you got to accept reality, right? And the math will tell us that it is becoming almost impossible for that to happen, especially considering that it doesn't look like Av3k's going to let his guard down. He talked about how he loves to play on land. This is an Av3k that you would expect to see in a land environment.
Oh, yeah. Av3k looking supremely strong. Now, let's not forget that we've seen Av3k in the grand finals. I think it was DreamHack Winter 2018, where he ultimately lost against Rafa. But Rafa had nothing but praise for his opponent, saying that his aim was absolutely unreal, decision-making, everything on point. So let's see, right? Because you were talking about it earlier. A lot of people have been talking Kilson, Rafa, Razy. But it is Av3k who is number 3 in the seeding.
Yeah,
he finished 3rd in all of the season. So this is a man you cannot sleep on.
And I would argue that Av3k has a really good mentality coming into that.
True.
You know, the idea that, like, hey, you know, whether you win, you lose, you're going to have to play through these good players. There's no easy route. You've got to take that tough road. Accepting that as early as you can in the competition. And I think you have to when you've got so many great players right now who are ultimately going to be vying. I mean, I don't think anyone has any idea how that top 5 is going to flesh out, but certainly people have an idea about who could be there. I think there's even a couple surprises that we've seen today that might be like, hey, don't count everyone out at this point. It's kind of anyone game, but in the skills that we've seen showcased here, Flea, well,
oh no.
Not quite the gauntlet, but the suicide did come out. And in the final 20 seconds of this matchup, Av3k, we hadn't seen him yet up to this point, Flea, but I would say I think we can all confidently agree he's looking pretty good.
He absolutely is. Av3k, he came here with murderous intent, and that is what he is displaying right now. That aggression on map 1. Pure Av3k, classic Av3k aggression. So happy to see it again. Map 2 Corrupted Keep, you know, it's a smaller map. It doesn't allow for that same level of play, same kind of strategy, but still Av3k came out swinging and dominated the entire course of the arena.
Yeah, it's it really is so interesting just how, you know, we could say, hey, you're playing Quake Champions, right? Whether online or on LAN. But, you know, Av3k, and he talked about his 15-year experience. And in that 15-year experience, you've kind of got to have a pretty long list of paper of all of the different competitions that he's been to, especially then filter that into where he's done really well. And, like, I get it. That is the place where you want to be. If you're confident about your own play, you're, you know, You've seen this guy before? He's like kind of intimidating, not only in game but out of game too. That I want to be there for LAN. So I do think that he's finding his comfort zone. Will that continue on through the weekend? I think a lot of Av3k fans, and especially us who just want great Quake games, we're hoping for it. But that was a pretty damn good showing.
Yeah,
Lethal.
Some players, like, having been to their first LAN, or maybe they've been to one or two, some of these guys have shopping lists of LAN events they've been to over the years, and it's just incredible, and it really does show through no matter what age you are. And Av3k just played extremely well, and great combat skills across the board. psygib did have his moments, but it did struggle again and again in both its maps. But end of the day, psygib could put in a good run depending on the circumstances, how he performs, continuing going into that loser bracket. But Av3k, definitely here to play, definitely one of the favourites in the competition. We all talked about the top 4 and Av3k not mentioned too much, but keep an eye out for him because he really will do some damage here over the next couple of days.
And of course, Lethal, like you just said, there is a lower bracket as well, right? This is not the end of the road for psygib. He's going to drop down into the losers, but everyone has 2 lives, so to say, into this championship. So psygib, we haven't seen the last of him just yet.
Yep, and those games are going to continue. A quick 2-0 there with Av3k coming out the winner. psygib still live in the competition. We'll see him tomorrow in the lower bracket. Not 100% sure who his opponent will be, but you know, we're gonna get to that point and take a look at the schedule and all that good stuff as we resolve all this stuff out. So, gentlemen, we have got one more match remaining here on the main stage. It is going to be Buckster versus Yup. It is coming up next. We got 2 challengers coming in, and you know what? I've been really impressed with all of our challenger entries. So let's see if these 2 can match it as well. We'll be right back after this quick break. Don't go away.